Welcome back. We're in countdown mode, 75 days away from the 2024 presidential election. A new Fox News poll shows former President Trump is leading Vice President Kamala Harris by 1 point. But in an ABC Washington Post and Ipsos poll, that shows Harris with a 4-point lead on Trump. A CBS YouGov poll finds that the two candidates are tied among likely voters in battleground states. And the New York Times and Siena College poll shows Kamala Harris leading in Arizona and North Carolina, and Trump leading in Georgia and Nevada. However, the betting markets are now favoring Donald Trump. Polymarket's 2024 election forecast shows Trump with a 7-point lead over Harris. Just last week, the same forecast had Harris with a 10-point lead. Joining me now is Robert Cahaly. He is the chief pollster of the Trafalgar Group and co-host of Polling Plus. Robert, good to see you. Are you surprised at how tight these polls are? How do you see things?
Yeah, we've seen the same thing. It's a very tight election. It's going to go back and forth a lot of times. And these swing states are what matters most. I mean, people pay attention to these national polls. They're pretty irrelevant. But these swing state polls, this is where this battles are going to be fought. And it is really, you see some new states a little more in play. Georgia's a little more in play because of Kamala. But at the same time, in many ways, it's some of the Rust Belt states are a little more competitive for Trump because she doesn't have quite the draw that Biden did with some of those blue-collar workers. So it does balance out, but certainly there's been a new enthusiasm and enthusiasm and quality between the two parties brought because of the change at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, for sure. And that enthusiasm within the Democrat Party, does that turn into votes?
Might very well. But like with most parties, the enthusiasm comes from the extreme in their party. And so the enthusiasm comes because of how far left they went. And some of these left activists that were disappointed with Biden, who ran as a moderate, and now are fully engaged. I mean, this is when you think about Democrat nominees for president, this is one of the more far left tickets that they've ever run.
I see. Lee Carter, jump in here.
So I'm fascinated by how everything has just shifted over the last few weeks. And if you look at the enthusiasm, 31% enthusiasm among Democrats when Biden was the nominee. Now you've got over 80% enthusiasm, 50% increase. I mean, that's a huge swing in just a few weeks. And I'm trying to figure out what to attribute it to. I'm trying to figure out what it is that has made this happen. What's your sense of why it's been that dramatic of a shift when the new candidate is actually the vice president and part of this administration? We know who she is.
Well, we're seeing the exact same thing, both of them in the 80s now. And a lot of it has to do with the enthusiasm is based on the idea they have a chance to win. The lack of enthusiasm, I mean, people, Republicans or Democrats, one thing they have in common that should tie them all together, everybody wants to win. And the ability to win and the excitement about the possibility has made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that now they feel enthusiastic just because they think they have a chance, and that that she can turn over a new leaf and get past. Because one of the biggest problems Biden had, and this is the Republicans dropped the ball by not defining the issues early, was they were relying on his unpopularity because of his age. And they weren't building the case against him. Had they built the case against him early, a switch at the top wouldn't have made the difference that it did.
Well, you just said Georgia is in play. Doug Collins, is that what you're seeing in Georgia? Jump in here, Doug.
Yeah, look, Robert, I think Georgia is back, and I saw this last poll for us. Georgia's always if you look at the 22 election, all of our constitutional officers, except for Senate, there was an issue there, won by historical 53, 52% Republicans, which is about right. I'm seeing that sort of balance out. But one of the things I'm interested in, and I'd love to get your take on, is, and I like the fact that you stay away from the national polls. They're just eye candy. Go into these state polls, and what we're seeing, are you seeing the fact that she's not actually getting back up to historical averages on her side in the blue-collar worker, the African-American vote, the Hispanic vote, and the Asian vote? She's still lagging behind what they have traditionally done, which is making up some of these valuable swing state polls, which are actually going to decide the election.
There's no question. And what you see in Georgia is very accurate, because the group that she's most enthused are younger people that were just going to sit it out. Mm-hmm. And she's brought them back, that are left-leaning, brought them back into wanting to participate. And most especially the older African American crowd and the African American females. The move with a lot of the African American males toward Trump has not changed,
right,
and that is still strong. But it is that enthusiasm of people who might have, when they originally polled before, been represented by people who said they might vote to people who definitely vote, is what I would attribute most of her rise to, that new group. But it is true that that enthusiasm that Biden have of being able to relate to those Midwest blue-collar workers, at this point, she hasn't made the sale to them.
Right.
Robert, how do you think this election plays out November 5th?
You know, it is going to be very close. I mean, I think, you know, anyone who takes it for granted, the one thing I would have to agree with former President Clinton last night is don't get overconfident. Whichever side you're on, this thing is going to come down to every single vote, and it's going to be very tight. I think we could see an electoral college win by 3 or 4 points on either side. I think Trump has some advantages. I mean, once this convention's over,
yep,
it's kind of the end of the honeymoon period.
Right.
And with the RFK possibility, I think that may put Trump in, help level the field, and maybe there'll be some more accountability with her own issues.
All right.
Because there hadn't been any this week.
Yeah, we'll be watching that for sure. Robert, good to see you. Thanks very much.